Hey guys, it's JM here. Another episode of Pages from Sages, and as you can see, it's Christmas. This is about as much as you get from a bachelor in a small apartment when it comes to Christmas decoration, but it is what it is. But I do want to talk about something from a Christmas theme this week. Some of you may know, I'm United Methodist. Was born and raised United Methodist, and this is our hymnal. Now, the church I go to currently is more contemporary, so you don't see these a lot. But I grew up literally from birth in and around this. And one of the probably greatest Christmas hymns of all time. So there's Christmas carols and there's Christmas hymns. Carols are like Jingle Bells, Frosty, Rocking Around the Christmas Tree, all that nonsense that a lot of you hate. Some of you love. A lot of you love it, but a lot of you hate it. And I'm among those who hate it. I do not enjoy Christmas carols, but I love Christmas hymns. Love Christmas hymns. And Christmas hymns, unlike carols, are theologically rich. They're incredibly moving and powerful, and they transcend Western tropes of how we celebrate Christmas. So things that are specifically tied to Western understanding of Christmas, bells and sleighs and snowmen and all of that stuff. Christmas hymns are far older, most of them, and they reach back into the ancient scriptures, into scripture itself, into the ancient stories that surrounded the Advent season. And my favorite, absolute favorite of all of the Christmas hymns is O Come, Emmanuel. And if you're Methodist, it's hymn 211 in your hymnal. But the reason I like O Come, Emmanuel is because I'm an Old Testament teacher. I love the Hebrew Bible. And this song represents the longing that the Hebrew Bible ends with. So if you read your Old Testament, you read through Torah, you read through prophets, you read through the writings. By the time you get to the end of the Old Testament, in English Bibles, which are based on the Septuagint, the last book is Malachi. There's a longing and there's an unfulfilled expectation among Israel. Israel is back in their land after captivity, but they're still waiting for this promised renewal of the covenant, this promised exaltation of God's people back to a place of vindication and of not being oppressed, not being deported, not being massacred and destroyed and occupied by foreign military rule. There's a longing, and that longing lasts for about 400 years. And then in the New Testament, you turn the page for Malachi, the New Testament, and what you come to is the authors of the New Testament saying, hey, that longing, now the light is about to shine. Now God's dawn is breaking in, and it all starts with this baby born in this backwater town called Bethlehem. And today, we look back at the Christmas story and the Nativity and all this stuff, and we see it through the eyes of 2,000 years of Judeo-Christian history. But at the time, there was such a longing for freedom, and there was a longing to not be oppressed, occupied, beaten down, overrun, ruled by larger geopolitical powers. There was a longing for freedom and a longing to get away or to experience some alleviation of the suffering. That's what people were waiting for. And so when Jesus appears and he comes on the scene, and Christmas is all about Jesus' birth, and Easter is about Jesus' death and resurrection, but his life comes, and basically, if you follow Disciple Dojo's podcast through Torah study each week, you've seen over the past 5-6 years we've been doing it, how Jesus takes on the identity of Israel on himself. He actually has the audacity to speak about himself, his own role, as if he were reliving Israel's history, as if he were doing what Israel failed to do time and time again, but doing it not as someone come from outside, not as a Superman type figure who comes to this earth. And there's a lot of Superman archetypes in the Gospels. It's vice versa, actually. But it's not that. Rather, what you see in the biblical story is God himself actually becomes one of his people. He comes to dwell in and among his people, with his people. Immanuel, with us, God. And so this name, Emmanuel, is a shorthand for all of the longing and hopes that the Hebrew people have, the Israelites at the time, longing for God to come and actually do all of the things that the prophets promised would happen. That so far in the face of Roman captivity or Roman occupation are the farthest thing from happening. And that's where this song, O Come, Emmanuel, is so beautiful to me, because it picks up that longing. And rather than like rushing to celebrate the birth of Jesus and Away in the Manger and Silent Night and O Holy Night and all of this stuff that's really emotional but in a warm way, O Come, Emmanuel is this haunting, deeply moving longing in the midst of suffering, in the face of suffering. And so listen to the words. I'm just going to read. It's very short. I'll try to put the words up here on the screen as we go. But this is, I'm not going to read the chorus. The chorus is, rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. But I want you to listen to these verses. O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel, that mourns in lonely exile here until the Son of God appears. O come, thou wisdom from on high, and order all things far and nigh. To us the path of knowledge show, and cause us in her ways to go. O come, great Lord of might, who to thy tribes on Sinai's height in ancient times once gave the law, in cloud and majesty and awe, reaching all the way back to Torah and Mount Sinai and the Exodus. What was the Exodus? It was God bringing Israel out of captivity into freedom. And now this song captures that longing once again for that same thing. O come, thou root of Jesse's tree. This is a reference to Jesus being the Davidic Messiah in the line of David. David was the son of Jesse. So the root of Jesse, this has to do with the Messiah and his origins from that tribe. O come, thou root of Jesse's tree, and ensign of thy people be. An ensign of thy people be. Stand in the place of thy people. Be what we cannot be. Represent us in creation. Before thee, rulers, silent fall. Before thee, rulers, silent fall. In other words, before you, rulers fall silent. You're the King of Kings, Lord of Lords. All peoples on thy mercy call. These are the verses that rarely get sung in church, but there's three more, and listen to them, because now it gets into depths of things that we all long for. O come, thou key of David, come, and open wide our heavenly home. The captives from their prison free, and conquer death's deep misery. Free the captives, conquer death. That's the longing every generation has had, going all the way back into ancient times. The shroud that hangs over us. That God one day promised, Isaiah 25, one day promised to remove that shroud of death. And that's what Jesus claims, if his ministry is trustworthy, that's what he claims to be the beginning of, death's undoing. O come, thou dayspring, come and cheer our spirits by thy justice here. Longing for justice, a people that are oppressed. Disperse the gloomy clouds of night, and death's dark shadows put to flight. O come, desire of nations, bind all peoples in one heart and mind. From dust thou brought us forth to life, deliver us from earthly strife. This idea of peace on earth, a longing. Peace on earth comes when there's peace between man and God, then there can be peace between man and man. And the hymn writer, the author of the hymn, is saying that. The desire of the nations, come and bind us together in one heart. Bring peace on earth. Be the Prince of Peace. This hymn, though, it sums up the longing of what Christmas is. And this stuff's all right. I grew up with Christmas trees and candy canes and stockings, and I don't think there's anything wrong with any of that stuff. Even Santa. We grew up knowing Santa was make-believe and a fun thing that you do around Christmas, but he was based on St. Nicholas, who was a good man who did give gifts and all of this stuff. There are ways to celebrate Christmas in every culture. Cultures that don't have Christmas trees, cultures that have never seen a fir tree and don't know what a Yule log is and all this stuff. All of it is peripheral to Christmas. It is all just not even shouldn't even be on the main stage as anything other than background decoration. Because the real meaning of Christmas is what's found in this most beautiful of hymns, is a desire to be set free from the pain and the toil and the injustice and the oppression and the war and the misery and the death that we face every day. That's what all people have longed for. And that's the thing that Jesus, the New Testament authors, have the audacity to claim, that Jesus is the answer to all of that. And people for 2,000 years have had the audacity to believe that he is. Whether you believe that or not, I don't know who's watching this. I have people who watch my stuff because they like jujitsu, they like art, they don't really care about biblical stuff, they like literature. Cool. I'm just giving you an insider's perspective. I'm just giving you an inside look at something that one of the very few things about Christmas that pushes past sentimentalism, and it actually engages with people in their suffering. Because of the holidays, people suffer. Christmas is one of the most depressing times of year for a lot of people. Especially those of us, we don't have family, marriage, kids, all that stuff that Christmas seems to be all about. And so Christmas is really, really hard for a lot of people. What I love about this song is it lets it be hard. It gives voice to the crying out that we don't ever seem to be able to be free to do in church. When's the last time in church you sang a hymn of lament? When's the last time you cried out to God? Hey, this is not right. Come, Emmanuel. Get down here, God. Do something about this. Because this is horrible and we're suffering. That's the message of Christmas. That's what Emmanuel means. God with us. He actually did. He stepped down into, again, not a Superman alien from another planet, not this mysterious figure who is above earthly strife. No. He stepped down into a Judean peasant. And from there, he went on to change the world in ways that people in every single country on this earth recognize today, even if they don't believe it. They recognize the person of Jesus. We date our calendars by it. Not correctly, but that's a math error done in medieval times. But the point is that Christmas is about something monumental. God stepping into the world in order to suffer. And through his suffering, somehow, in some way that we can't explain, lift us from our suffering. We're not there yet, though. This is a sermon for another time. We're in between D-Day when the Allies landed and VE Day when the war was over. All that fighting in between, that's kind of where we are right now and have been since Jesus' first advent. But at his second advent, all of the things that we've longed for, all of the promises that God's made that are unfolding now in history, all of those things will be consummated. But I love O Come, O Come, Emmanuel, because it lets us live in that tension and it gives voice to our suffering. And that's something that people really need, whether they know it or not. So that's it. Pages from Sages this week, Christmas edition. Hope you enjoyed it. Have happy holidays, and we'll see you next episode.